So I'm very happy to be appointed to have this association with the university, hopefully to build bridges with my university in the UK as well, and just to contribute in any way I can to the development of this university, which is still very young. It's not even a decade old yet, and as my home institution actually. I still consider Gibraltar my home, even though I live in the UK a lot of the time. So the university's already doing great things in less than a decade. It's got all kinds of teaching programs, all kinds of sort of research hubs, and it's just going from strength to strength. So it's really a privilege and opportunity to be part of that.
So it's primarily an honorary position, but there are some active elements of it as well. You are giving your inaugural lecture today, for example.
Yes, an honorary position. It's an unpaid position, but it's still what it allows me to do is actually to play a full role to the extent that I can in the activities of the university. And that involves giving the occasional lecture. So this is the first one that I'm doing. And these are lectures for public consumption rather than sort of technical, legal lectures. But there may be some of those as well. And I can help out with research students and really in any way that I can. I mean, I'm available to help the university now, and now having a position makes it easier to do that.
You are attempting in this inaugural lecture to summarize and give a synopsis of 300 years of history of Gibraltar's territorial waters. Is that a bit of a tall order when so much has happened in this space of time?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a potted history, obviously. It's not going to be particularly detailed, but I'm just trying to give a broad, sweeping history of what's happened over the last few centuries, because I don't think a lot of it is very well understood. And the current positions now in the disagreements between the UK and Spain, they were framed as recently as the late 1960s. And sort of before then, Britain controlled a much larger expanse of water around Gibraltar than it currently does. And anyone who is really under 70 years of age won't have a living memory of that. Right? But this whole area of water along what's now the Paseo Marítimo in Spain, that was part of the British anchorage, and it was controlled by Britain, and Spain wasn't able to access those waters from its coast. So I want to explain some of the history of that dispute, much of which centered on that northern anchorage, which Britain no longer claims. So Britain withdrew to the median line around 1968. So I think once people understand the history of this dispute in context, I think they're able to understand the modern positions that both countries take a bit more clearly.
From a historical perspective, but of course from a legal perspective, Gibraltar is always convinced that Spain's position is untenable.
Yes, and any serious international lawyer will tell you that every coastal territory has a right to territorial waters. There's no exception in the world to that principle, and Gibraltar certainly is no exception. So when Spain says that Gibraltar has no waters around it, it's not a credible claim. And when they make that claim in multilateral forums, people sometimes wonder where it comes from. So I guess my purpose today is not just to show that in a legal sense this is a claim that's simply not credible.
Because that's taken for granted.
That's a very easy thing to do, actually. But the more difficult thing to do is to show what the sociological foundations are of this claim. And then it may seem a little bit less eccentric on the face of it. But the legal position is extremely clear, actually, that every coastal territory around the world has a right to set up to 12 nautical miles of territorial waters. In Gibraltar, we assert 3, and those are drawn in accordance with the median line principle. And for Spain to suggest otherwise makes it look slightly flaky, I think, when it does this internationally, because no one takes the claim seriously.